Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today I watched an episode of The Kardashians and that really bothered me so much.
This is a huge bowl of fruit.
Yeah, does it ever get eaten or does it get thrown away every week and restocked?
That's really bad. There's people in Africa that are starving. There's people in Africa that are starving. There's people in Africa
I
that are
realize
starving.
there's so many misconceptions about African countries as a whole, and I kind of want to debunk some of them today in this video as an African myself. Of course, like, Africa is a continent, not a country, and people always assume Africa is a country, which annoys me so much. Africa is a continent with many countries. There are 54 countries in Africa today, according to the United Nations. When people say I'm visiting Africa, I'm like, okay, cool. Where exactly? Like, Africa is so huge. Be more specific. I rarely hear people say I'm visiting Asia. They usually say the country they're visiting instead, so it's kind of confusing to me why it's different for Africa. And another thing is that people think Africa is riddled with diseases. Over time, Africa has been reported as a continent riddled with diseases. These reports have led people outside of Africa to have like the notion that Africa is a disease-plagued continent, which is like so bothersome to me. Another thing is that people believe that Africa is always hot. Like, most travelers assume that it is always hot in Africa. True, there are certain countries in Africa that experience hot weather compared to other nations, specifically countries situated in like tropical West Africa. However, this doesn't occur all year round. Like, there are many countries in Africa during the winter that experience snows. Like countries such as South Africa, Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, like just to name a few. Although in the depths of the Sahara Desert, the temperature becomes freezing at night, so that makes no sense. Another thing is people always think that like all Africans are dark-skinned. That is false. One of the most rampant like stereotypes is that people have of Africans is that all Africans are dark-skinned. This ideology is untrue. Africans have different skin pigments and possesses like distinct shades of skin that cut through like various tribes in various regions around the continent. A major example is like South Africa. Some in South Africa are whites. Black is a race. It's not just associated with the color of your skin. And another misconception is that people have is that Africa had no civilization in its history. So people believe like certain historic theories in the past have noted that Africa before the Europeans' influences were barbarians. With these theories, people have developed the notion that blacks were slaves and uneducated since the beginning of time. But with much pride, this is false. The ancient Moors, for example, who were African, once ruled the markets of commerce in the world and built great empires with their knowledge of art and architecture. So that is false. Another thing is people believe like all African countries are poor. That is false. Poverty is one of the problems many African countries struggle with. However, not all African countries are wallowing in poverty. Africa is one of the world's most richest continents with natural resources, which includes gold, crude, oil, coal, among others. Like countries like Botswana, for example, South Africa, Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco rank in the top 100 out of 126 richest countries in the world as of 2019. 1 in 3 Africans are defined as middle class, and whilst many Western economies are in crisis, Africa's economy continues to grow. Did you know that 6 out of 10 of the fastest growing economies in the world are African? Another misconception is that people believe like Africa is all savannah and wild animals. That is not true. Basically, in 2014, Delta Airline, a major US carrier, made a huge mistake on social media. They congratulated the US World Cup team on a victory over Ghana. They used a photo of a giraffe to represent the African nation. Unfortunately, that is so false, as in fact, like, no wild giraffes are in Ghana, and the Twitter community was quick to alert them of this. Yes, there are a whole host of exciting wild animals and gorgeous savannas in some regions of Africa. However, there are also huge cities, rolling beaches, like historic ancient monuments, and more. One region of Africa is not identical to another, and we shouldn't stereotype a whole continent in this way. Another thing is that people believe like Africa has no access to modern technology. That is false. Technology technology in Africa is actually an incredibly fast-growing market, with many global technology giants making big investments in the continent. As of 2013, 80% of African people had access to a mobile, so that is false. And another thing is people believe like in order to develop, Africa should become like the West. Again, false. Many African countries are far ahead of Western countries in terms of sustainable energy use. Both in the UK and the US source only 11% of their energy from renewable sources, which is like far less than Kenyan sources, which is like 13% of Kenya's energy consumption. Meanwhile, a staggering 50% of Kenya's energy comes from like hydroelectricity. So in terms of like long-term sustainability, wouldn't we be looking at Kenya for some answers? Another thing is people believe that there's no art industry in Africa, which is false again. Every year more films are made in Nigeria's Nollywood than in US's Hollywood all around. So that is again false. Another thing is people believe like Africans are poor without the West's help, and that is again the stereotype of African people as helpless and dependent on Western countries to help them, which is again false. They have built this narrative for decades of like people having like bombarded of images of sad, dirty children with eyes that call you to urgently donate money. A lot of like dangerous charity advertisements have been going with that narrative, and it's no surprise that it is a common belief. That is, however, very, very, very false. And I don't want to elaborate any more on that. Like, these advertisements are so harmful and is a common misconception. Another thing is people believe that Africa is a language and African people don't speak English. There are over 2,000 languages spoken across the African continent, and Africa is not one of them. Like, that is not a language. This is the equivalent of saying that people who live in Europe speak European. English is also an official language in like 24 African nations and taught to high schools in like across the continent. Another thing is people believe like everyone in Africa lives in a mud house in the middle of nowhere. Where would you guess the city is? Like US, Europe, Asia? Nope. This is Lagos in Nigeria, and it has a population of 21 million, more than double of the urban London. In 2008, 39% of African population lived in urban areas, and this is rapidly growing. These are just some of the misconceptions of Africa that had bothered me for so long. A lot of people are quite ignorant to the vast majority of many African countries. Let me know if I missed anything, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!